Hi, welcome to Bookwood. It's cold. Let's go inside. Come in.
I'm glad you chose to spend some time with me. This time, let's discuss the books we've read during the month of February. Quick reminder, I read for a challenge called Petit Mois, Petite Lecture, which translates to A Short Month, Short Reads by Le Souffle des Mots on YouTube. This challenge taught me that I should choose carefully if I want to read a shorter book. I love extensive world building and I also prefer to get to know the characters very well. I noticed that for a shorter book to grip me, it has to have that little special or special to me something. Unfortunately, most of my reads for this challenge got 3 stars, just okay reads for me. This month will be a quite difficult wrap-up to make, since the kids have break on school and they are at home. So in this video, in the book discussion part, we will be going out for a walk together and we will also make a little stop at the playground. I chose a day and a time that most people are at work, but unfortunately we do have a lot of background noise. Spring is even more visible than while I was filming my Romantasy-a-thon vlog. So to compensate the disturbance of the noise, we do have some beautiful nature scenes in this video. But before we go out for this walk, I would like to discuss with you my reading stats for the month. Here you can see me setting up my stats spread in the same style as I set up my other February spreads. Again, I used these transfer letter stickers. I placed them halfway over the washi tape, but unfortunately they don't stick well on it. So in a while you will see how I add the rest of the letters by hand. This month I have read 20 books, of which I unfortunately DNF'd 2. 11 of these books were physical and they make for 2,382 pages. I listened to 62 hours and 18 minutes of audiobook. I don't exclude DNF'd books from my stats, but I do only include the pages I did read or the time I did listen to them. 10 of these books were novels, 9 were novellas, and 1 was a graphic novel. I owned 3 of them, found 1 in a book box, 7 came from the library, and I found all 9 audiobooks on Audible. Unfortunately, I did not find any new 5-star reads this month. I read through 9 different genres this month. My top 3 is fantasy with 8 books, sci-fi with 4 books, and magical realism with 2 books. While printing out my stats, I made an error and I had to correct this. I read books from 19 different authors and 13 were new to me. 12 of the books I read were standalones, which leaves only 8 books that were part of a series. I started 3 series, read 3 sequels, and finished 2 series. I stopped keeping track of rereads versus first-time reads and decided to keep track of the languages I read in. This month I read 14 books in French and 6 in English. I again made a little Dutch door to add in the vignettes for the books I've read for the 52 Book Club Reading Challenge. I have agreed with myself that each month I can only add a maximum of 8 books to this challenge. In the start of the year, this is very easy since all the easier prompts are still open, but this will soon become more difficult. I was left with the little open space on these pages and I didn't really know what to do with them since most of my stickers are now used. So I ended up with only adding in these pink squares. To celebrate the Lunar New Year, the 52 Book Club added a mini challenge to the original challenge. I read a book for each of the 3 prompts and add in their printable to celebrate this. I attach it as a tip-in to the Dutch door for this challenge. Let's flip through my yearly challenge spreads to add in the information for them. I have read Sword of Fire or Devrin 16 for my adventure in Eldia. My prompt was to read a book from the bottom right side of my shelf. Here are the books that I have read for the 52 Book Club Reading Challenge. I crossed them out on the spread, and since there is one that is genre bound, I add this information. Also, let's take a look at the books I read for the Lunar New Year Challenge. I have added 3 authors to my ABC challenge. Kashmira Sheth, who wrote Keeping Corners, or in French, Un sari couleur de boue. Jupiter Phaeton, who has written Le Sanctuaire des Dragons. And Tamsyn Muir, who is the author of Princess Floralinda and the 40 Flight Tower. I got very distracted by my kids and made a lot of mistakes that I had to correct. For that I am very happy that I write with a fountain pen. I was able to add quite some books to the 25 in 25 bingo board from 4 Paws and a Book. Very soon I can bingo a column and a row. Should I pick out books especially for this soon, or would you prefer that we'll see when this naturally happens? Please leave your preference in the comments down below. I think it is pretty obvious that I have read Keeping Corner for the Les Étapes Indiennes challenge. The prompt was jeunesse, which translates to middle grade. I didn't read a book for the fifth salon this month. I miscalculated my page count for my TBR and did not get to it. No big deal, since I am ahead now. I did manage to read my reread of the second book of the His Dark Materials series. After some debating with myself, I decided that I could add Sword of Fire to the Read Me Bingo, even if I had set it aside to read it after rereading the whole Devery series. Since it is taking place later and technically can be read without reading the 15 first books, I think I can add it. I can cross off the series that I read for: the Ruinous Love trilogy, the Kira Storm Riding series, Devery, but we also have to add some series that I started. The first one is Divine Darkness by Anna Triss. This series will have 3 books. The next one is Le Secret du Faucon by AD Martel. It is slightly unclear how many books there are. There is a first part that is made up of 5 books, and a new part has just started with the release of a first book. All these books are called Le Secret du Faucon with a number of the tome in it. So at this point I just decided to make 10 squares since the first arc had 5 books. We'll see how many there will be. The last series I am adding this month is the Murderbot Diaries. I have started this and I have already read the 2 first books, even if I forget to add the second one in my tracker. For now there are 7 books in this series, but I don't know if there will be any more, so I made some extra squares. I decided I had to find a way to indicate series I had finished, so I highlighted their number in the list. The book club book for the Mooney Book Club was The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. It was a DNF, so I couldn't add a lot of information in my square. And with that, the journal is up to date. Let's go out now. This month, unfortunately, I DNF'd 2 books. The first one is How to Lose the Time War, and I DNF'd it because I was way too confused about where in time we are, what location we are, and I'm quite sure that many of these mysteries get solved further on in the book, but the feeling of being so confused was really distracting me from the read and really holding me back from wanting to pick it up. The second book I DNF'd is The Spear Cuts Through Water, and I DNF'd this one because I couldn't get into it. I felt disappointed that I had to make this decision because I really loved how the story was in the story, and I also really liked the writing style in which we had the thoughts of surrounding people being slided in of the main text and events. I have had this book active for almost the whole month of February, and since I couldn't make any progress, I decided that it was better to let it go and to bring it back to the library. This month I started 3 new series. The first one is the Murder Bot Diaries by Matha Wells. If you want to know more about this, I direct you to my upcoming vlog for Petit Mois, Petite Lecture, that will be out around the 10th of March. The next series I started is Divine Darkness by Anna Triss. My favorite author brought out a new trilogy just recently. If you want to know more about this series, you can go to my Romantasy-a-thon vlog, in which I talk more about these books. The third series I started is Le Secret du Faucon by AD Martel. This is a Belgian author, and even better, this is an author from the region I live in. In this series that I have been wanting to read for a while, we'll be following Cyrielle, who has been sent to a convent many years ago after her mother died. But this fall, the convent has been attacked by some bandits and has left in total ruin. So the time to build it up again, the head of it decides to send all novices home. We will follow Cyrielle on her trip back home, and we will watch how she meets her family again. After spending some time with different members of the court, she discovers that her family has a lot of secrets and that she is in the heart of them. When she finds out that her family holds some strange magic, the story really sets off. But that's also where the first book ends, so I will need to get to the second one to be able to tell you more. I have read 3 sequels, but will only talk about 2, since one of them is a sequel for the Murder Bot Diaries. I read the second book in His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman, which in English is called The Subtle Knife. And I have read the 6th book in the Kira Storm Rider series by Jupiter Phaeton, which is called Le Sanctuaire des Dragons. I also finished 2 series, or at least that's what I supposed to. The first one is Devery, which ends for now with the 16th book called Sword of Fire. I say this is a maybe finish because at this point we don't know if this is effectively the last book in this series. If you want to know more about this book, I will also direct you to my Romantasy-a-thon vlog, in which I talk more extensively about this book. The second series I finished is the Ruinous Love Trilogy by Brian Weaver, for which I read Scythe and Sparrow. In this trilogy, we follow 3 brothers that all have some dark secret and how they meet their forever love, or the girl they are going to marry. In this one, we follow Fionn, who is a doctor, and who will meet Rose. Rose, who works in a fair and travels around the United States. In this fair, she is a fortune teller, but she also does a motorcycling act. Women who come to her fortune-telling tent can also let her know that they have an abusive husband, and she will help them to get rid of him. For this type of work, she is known as Sparrow. This time, it goes wrong, since she decides that she will herself punish and thus kill the man that abuses the woman that she meets at the fairground. But she doesn't quite make it and gets very badly hurt with a broken leg. This is how she and Fionn meets. Since she cannot travel with the fair to the next place they are expected, she doesn't know where to go, and Fionn offers her to stay over at his house. During this stay, they will get to know each other better, and their dark secrets will be revealed. They will fall in love, but since they cannot admit it to each other, Rose ends up going back to the fair. At that point, the man she tried to kill and that now hunts her down finds her and tries to kill her. Of course, Fionn will come to the rescue. I will not tell you more in case you would like to discover this book. You don't need to have read the two others in the series, Butcher and Blackbird and Leather and Lark, even if it is fun if you read them before, since the stories cross each other and it is quite funny when you know what is happening on the other side when you come to those parts. The next 6 reads are books that I have read for Le Petit Mois, Petite Lecture. So you will find more information about these books in the vlogs for this readathon. But I will still mention them. The first one is La péninsule aux 24 saisons by Inaba Mayumi. In English it is called The Peninsula, but it is not translated. Then we have The Hole by Hye-Young Pyun. In French it is called Le Jardin. And the last physical book in the first vlog is Terrible, l'enfant, la jeune fille et la sorcière by, I forgot, Gaël Henry, which is a graphic novel. In the next vlog that has not come out yet, we have This Is How You Lose the Time War, for which I spoke a little bit at the start of this wrap-up. I have read La Sourcière by Elise Fontenay, which has not been translated, but which was a very, very nice book to read. And the last physical book I have read for this readathon are Pedro Paramo by Juan Rolfo. In these vlogs you will also hear me talk about The Bear by... I always forget, I will put the name somewhere on the screen. And Princess Floralinda and the 40 Flight Stairs by Tamsyn Muir. In our region, the sparrowhawk is very protected and we see them often. This one followed us along for a while. We are left with 3 books to discuss. The first one is Albert Einstein, L'homme le plus surveillé d'Amérique. I already talked a little bit about this audiobook at the end of my last wrap-up. I already started this audiobook in January, but it was the first one I continued listening to in February. And indeed, we got an answer on the question of this investigation into Albert Einstein was legitimate. First head of the FBI really was suspicious about Albert Einstein, but never ever was found any evidence that he was a threat to the United States. I am glad I read this book. I learned some things that I didn't know, but I learned more about World War II and the Cold War than about Albert Einstein himself. Still, it was worth listening to. The next book I have read is Un sari couleur de boue by Kashmira Sheth. In English it is called Keeping Corners. This is a middle grade book that I have read for Les Étapes Indiennes that is set in the 1920s in the Gujarat state. Only for that this book was a big hit for me, because one of my best friends lives in this state, and so I am curious to discover everything that has to do with Gujarat. In this book, we will follow the story of a young girl, and I forgot her name, it was a while ago, that has been married off when she was 9. And she is now 13 and approaches the age that she will go and live with her husband, who is, if I understood well, 16. Unfortunately, this boy gets bitten by a venomous snake and he dies, which leaves her a widow. Being a widow at that time is very difficult. She has to shave off all her hair. She cannot wear any jewelry. She also has to wear a very special sari. She cannot remarry, so she will be a widow for the rest of her life. Once the first shock is over and she starts to understand what is going to happen to her, she don't feel very happy about that. Her brother will do everything in his power to make her have a life, and he finds her a teacher that comes teach her at home, and she can still get her diploma. This girl will end up going to study to become a teacher herself after some big struggles with her family to be able to do that. I thought this was a very sad story. I have inquired at my friend and he says this is indeed historical correct. And he assures me that this is not the case anymore in Gujarat. And I also found that this story was told with so much optimism and so much hope of how to make a sad situation a force instead of an unhappiness, which is a typical Indian mindset. The last book that I have read in class is L'Histoire du Docteur Dolittle, or the story of Dr. Dolittle. I have read this book with my kids, and at this point we are not sure if this is a DNF or not. It will be addressed in the vlog for Petit Mois, Petite Lecture, but what I want to tell about this now is that my boys ended up both not liking the story. Naoki didn't like it. He didn't like the writing style. He likes a more purple prose. And Niklaus, who at first really loved this story, was quite disturbed by the way the difference between the different human races is addressed. This is an old book, and so you can call it quite racist. And he, who did not grow up in such a mindset, was not liking this, and for him it was a reason not wanting to listen to the rest of the story. So we did not finish this book, but I still would like to finish it as soon as possible, because for knowing the story of this classic before watching the movie with my kids. See you soon!